They laughed at him like he was a walking joke. I remember that day, like a wound that never healed. Chibuzor came late to school again, dust clinging to his feet like shame. His shirt was torn near the armpit, his short trousers faded beyond recognition, and he carried a nylon bag instead of a proper school bag. As he walked in, his head low and his eyes heavy, one of the boys shouted, "Here comes the future gate man!" The whole class erupted in laughter. Even the teacher shook his head and sighed. But what they didn't know was that Chibuzor had worked all night at the mechanic workshop just to buy his school exercise books. He had wiped grease off engines with his bare hands, gone home with burns on his fingers, yet still came to school with a smile that broke my heart. I was one of the quiet boys. I never laughed, but I never spoke up either. Shame on me. But I watched Chibuzor pick himself up from every insult. He would look at the blackboard like it held the key to his freedom, and he wrote notes like he was signing a deal with destiny. People mocked him on the street too. Some called him Mr. Sufferhead. Others said, "Why go to school if you still carry cement like your father?" But he never answered them. He only tightened his face and walked faster, like he was chasing something they could not see. There was a time I saw Chibuzor sitting by the school gate, crying silently. His hands were black with engine oil, and his lips were dry, like the Hamatan wind. I walked close, sat beside him, and asked, "What is it again, Chibuzor?" He sniffed and smiled a weak smile. "They've sent me home again. No school fees." It was the third time that term. The headmaster said, "Tell your parents to pay or don't come back." But his mother had already sold her wrappers. His father was long buried under the village udala tree. It was just him and his mother, a woman whose knees knew the ground more than the chair, always praying, always begging. Sometimes he would come to class with nothing, no pen, no book, not even food. Yet he would still sit in front, eyes sharp like an eagle, soaking every word from the teacher's mouth. The same teacher who once told him, "Hard work does not feed belly, my friend." The worst part was how his mates treated him. They would hide his slippers, pour water on his books, and call him Chibuzo no future. I once saw him eating leftover bread by the gutter, and when one rich boy passed, he said, "Eat fast, your Keke is waiting." But Chibuzo never replied. He just wiped his tears and muttered, one day the same mouths will call me sir." And truly, something about the way he said it made my skin rise like goosebumps. After primary school, Chibuzor didn't go to secondary school immediately. He spent one full year doing menial jobs, helping load sand, washing plates in mama put, running errands for tailors. While others used biro to write exams, he used his hands to write survival stories. Then, by some miracle of sweat and grace, he entered a public secondary school. His uniforms were second-hand, his shoes had more patches than original leather, but his soul, oh his soul, was spotless with hope. By now, people in our area knew him as the boy that never gives up. Rain or shine, he would be in school. Sometimes I saw him trekking long distances with a torn bag slung over one shoulder. He would greet elders with deep respect and still run errands for his mother after school, never once complaining. He continued working at the mechanic workshop after school, and when that wasn't enough, he took night jobs cleaning offices. He would do homework under street lights or with candlelight when PHCN failed, which was almost always. Some would say, "This your book safe? Hope you're not just wasting time." But he would smile and say, "Let me waste time on books, so my children will never waste time on hunger." That was the kind of soul he had, the kind that turned insults into fuel. Chibuzor passed WAEC with flying colors. He even helped some of the same boys who mocked him. They came to him secretly, asking for help. He didn't hold it against them. He tutored them with the same kindness that life never gave him. Then came university. That was when suffering showed its full teeth. He gained admission into UNN to study electrical engineering. But how would he pay acceptance fees, school fees, textbooks, transportation, and still eat? His mother had no money. All she had was a wrapper, a rosary, and prayers whispered into the wind. So Chibuzor went back to the street. He sold oranges in traffic. He carried blocks at construction sites. He even hawked gala and pure water, dodging lasma and insults like a professional. I once saw him standing in the rain, selling phone recharge cards to strangers who didn't even look him in the eye. One day, a girl he used to like in school passed by in her father's car. She wound down and said, yeah, from classmate to streetmate. Her laughter haunted me more than it hurt him. He just nodded and said, I'm going somewhere. Don't worry. And that's the truth. He was going somewhere, even if the road was covered in thorns. After 4 years of school, filled with strikes, hunger, and hardship, Chibuzor graduated. Nobody thought he would, but he did. He returned with his certificate like it was the crown of a king, and he carried it everywhere, wrapped in nylon like treasure. Then came the job hunt. He wore his best shirt and trousers and moved from office to office. He submitted CVS with hope in his eyes. But weeks turned to months. 6 months, no job, not even a callback, just rejection after rejection. People began to talk again. Is this not the Chibuzor that carried block to go to school? What did he gain? I told him to learn trade. Book no dey feed man. He thinks say certificate be money. It was like insult was his inheritance. But Chibuzor never gave up. I saw him reading online about how to create his own opportunities. He would still wake up early, dress neatly, and hustle. But this time not for a job, for an idea. And when it didn't come, he did something bold, something nobody saw coming. One day, Chibuzor showed up in a brand new Keke napep. Not flashy, not loud, just simple, clean, and his own. People laughed again. So this one is now a Keke man? After all the grammar? Welcome to your destiny. But Chibuzor smiled. It's better than waiting at the gate of offices that never open. He drove that Keke with pride, morning till night, rain or shine. Even on Sundays, he carried passengers like he was driving a Benz. Some mocked, some respected, but he didn't care. He was saving. Every naira counted. After 3 years, Chibuzor had more than savings. He had a plan. He used part of his money to process papers, passport, visa, everything. Nobody knew until the day he boarded the plane. Just like that, the same boy who once begged for school fees was flying abroad. And me? I wept that day, not out of sadness, but because I knew this was the beginning of something mighty. When Chibuzor reached abroad, a cold land where the trees didn't sing like ours and the sun was too shy to shine, he started from the very bottom again. No family, no friends, only faith. He got a cleaning job in a restaurant. The pay was small, but he worked like he was building heaven with a mop. Every night, when others left work tired, he stayed back to clean more, learn more, ask questions. Sometimes he would cry in silence, remembering how Mama used to pray for him under the mango tree back home. He faced racism, hunger, and loneliness. Some mocked his accent, others treated him like he was invisible. But Chibuzo didn't come abroad to make friends. He came to make a future. He took online courses. He saved every cent. While others wore designer clothes, he wore wisdom. He sent money home to his mother, who used to hawk bitter leaf, but now smiled like a queen. He never forgot who he was, where he came from, or the voices that said, You can't. And every time he thought of quitting, he remembered the rain that beat him while hawking, the girls who laughed, the teachers who doubted him. And he said to himself, if suffering didn't kill me, snow won't freeze me. After 5 years, Chibuzor's hands were no longer the hands of a boy, they were the hands of a builder. He had saved enough to invest in small businesses back home. He started a small importation company and registered it in Nigeria. He sent money back to his cousin to manage the first office. People who once called him Mr. Sufferhead were now asking, how did he do it? But Chibuzor didn't brag. He remained quiet, still wore the same jacket he used in his first winter. He started attending trade shows, networking events, and business seminars. His English got sharper, his ideas deeper, and his dreams louder. From one small hustle, he grew into three businesses. He opened a mini logistics firm, partnered with tech startups, and invested in local farmers back home. Even though he was abroad, his heart never left Nigeria. He employed people in his village, paying them salaries that made them weep with gratitude. One night, as he looked in the mirror, he whispered, from gutter to glory, from mocked to mighty, God, thank you. But he wasn't done, not yet. The day Chibuzor returned home, the village stood still. His car, long, black, and polished like a soldier's boots, rolled in like royalty. People gathered, women ululated, children ran barefoot to see Uncle Chibu. Even the same boys who mocked him lined up like ushers. His mother stood in front of their old house, wearing new lace with tears dancing down her cheeks. Chibuzor stepped out, wearing a simple agbada and sandals. He didn't need to shout. His presence did all the talking. He knelt and hugged his mother. I told you I'd come back, Mama. And oh, what a return it was. He renovated the house, built three new ones in the compound, bought land, opened a factory, and created a scholarship fund for poor children. Those who once called him future gate man now called him Sir. Banks lined up to speak with him. Politicians sent greetings. The same people who slammed doors on him now offered their gates wide open. But Chibuzor remained humble. He gave jobs to those who laughed at him. He never reminded them of the past. He just smiled and said, life is a river. Today you're down, tomorrow you float. Chibuzor didn't stop at money. He built legacy. He opened a tech hub in the city and named it after his late father. He opened a free mechanic training center in the village, the same work that once fed him. And he built a school for poor children, giving them uniforms, books, and hope. The children who wore torn uniforms, just like him back then, now walked with pride. He made sure every child who wanted to learn had a seat and a pen. He would sit sometimes on his balcony, watching the sunset, and whisper to the wind, if I can make it, they can too. Every December, he hosted a festival called the Sufferers Rise, where he gave awards to hardworking people, drivers, farmers, traders, and students. The entire community celebrated not just success, but struggle. He once said, I didn't make it because I was lucky. I made it because I refused to break. Pain taught me, shame shaped me, and suffering crowned me. And I, the boy who sat beside him in class, the one who watched from the shadows, I now write his story so others can rise too. Life is a drum. What you beat into it is what it echoes back. I remember the day Chibuzor held a job fair in the village town hall. He wore simple native clothes and sat quietly while young people filed in, CVs in hand, some with eyes full of fear, others with hope. Many didn't recognize him at first, but when his name was called, jaws dropped. One of the boys, yes, one of those that used to call him Bush Boy, now stood in line holding his application letter like holy scripture. Another, who once poured water on his book back in school, bowed and said, Sir, I'm sorry for everything. Chibuzor shook his hand, smiled, and said, we all have our foolish seasons. It's what we do after that matters. He gave many of them jobs, not because he needed workers, but because he believed everyone deserves another chance. And that is the mark of a great man, not just rising above your enemies, but lifting them when they fall. There are some scenes that hold the weight of stories untold. It was market day. The sun sat proudly in the sky, and the town was buzzing like a festival. Chibuzor came to open a new supermarket, his latest investment. The ribbon was cut, drums beat, and people danced. Then I saw her, the girl who once laughed at him from her father's car. She now sold tomatoes by the roadside, her wrapper faded, her eyes sunken. She looked up, saw Chibuzor, and froze. He noticed her too. For a moment their eyes met. The past stood between them like a ghost. She dropped her basket and walked slowly toward him. Chibuzor, she whispered. He looked at her and said, Kioma, how are you? Tears rolled down her face. I mocked you, I insulted you, but life punished me where words couldn't reach. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. Life is not a straight line. If you ever need help, come to me. That was the kind of man Chibuzo had become. Not just successful, but forgiving. One dusty evening, an old prophetess came from a far off village. People said she walked with spirits, that she saw tomorrow in her sleep. She had heard of Chibuzor's story and came to bless his home. I was there when she arrived, barefoot, carrying a small calabash and a staff made from Iroko wood. She sat on his veranda and said, my son, your story will not end with you. Chibuzor knelt before her. She sprinkled water on his head and chanted, from shame to fame, from mockery to memory. You will father nations. You will raise kings. Your name will be spoken in places your feet never touched. He wept like a child. She looked into his eyes and said, your suffering was not in vain. You were chosen to carry pain so others can walk free. And when she left, silence followed her like a tail. That night I couldn't sleep because I realized this was no longer just Chibuzor's story. It had become a parable for generations. Mama, oh Mama, the woman who used to hawk bitter leaf and tie wrappers with holes now walked like a queen. Chibuzor bought her a house. Not just any house, but one that touched the sky. Every wall painted with the color of victory. Every chair soft enough to rest 100 prayers. She no longer fetched water or cooked with firewood. Now, she drank from clean taps and cooked in tiled kitchens. But the true gift was how she was treated. At every family meeting, people stood when she entered. They greeted her with two hands, bowed heads, and deep respect. She always smiled and said, don't thank me. Thank my son, the boy who never gave up. And at church, when she danced, you could see heaven watching. The same woman who once cried under the rain now danced in gold wrapper, her hands lifted high, tears of joy dropping like dew. Her suffering had borne fruit. Her child had returned as a king. Now, as I sit under this tree writing this story, I still remember the boy with the torn shirt, the oily hands, the sunburnt skin, walking to school with empty pockets but a full heart. Chibuzor didn't win by chance. He didn't stumble into success. He carved it, shaped it, bled for it. He was mocked, laughed at, insulted, pushed down, and left behind. But he kept walking. And now he is a name, a brand, a movement. But for me, he will always be that quiet boy who whispered, one day, that one day is now today. Dear reader, if you are still struggling, if people mock your hustle, if the world has turned its back on you, remember Chibuzo. Let this story sit in your bones like medicine. Let it remind you suffering does not mean failure, Insult is not the end. And hard work, true, honest, painful hard work always pays. So rise, wipe your tears, and keep walking. Your own one day is coming. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment your opinion. Let me know what you learned from this story. And finally, don't forget to turn on the notification button so that anytime we drop new story, you will be the first to watch it. Thank you, my dear listeners.